Hey everyone, welcome back to Professional Perspectives. I'm Praneeth, and I'm here with my co-host Arav. We're so excited to bring you another insightful conversation as we continue exploring the stories and experiences of professionals who made a mark in their career.
Absolutely, Praneeth. In our first episode, we had an amazing discussion with Mr. Sweetler about the intersection of creativity and technology. If you haven't listened to that one yet, definitely check it out. But today, we're shifting gears a bit.
That's right. For our second episode, we're thrilled to welcome a guest who's not only a passionate educator, but also an author dedicated to helping students navigate the complexities of college life. Mr. McCarthy is a principal lecturer at ASU's W.P. Carey School of Business and the author of the book How to Avoid Messing Up in College. His journey from being a two-time college dropout to teaching over 70,000 students is nothing short of inspiring.
Mr. McCarthy's book is packed with real-world advice, drawn from his own experiences, as well as what he's learned from guiding thousands of students over the years. He's here to share his insights on how to succeed in college, avoid common pitfalls, and build a strong foundation for a successful career.
We're really looking forward to diving into his story and learning more about the practical advice he offers to students. So without further ado, let's get started. Mr. McCarthy, welcome to Professional Perspectives. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, Mr. McCarthy, in your journey from dropping out to becoming a successful professor, what were some pivotal career moments that shaped your path?
Being poor. I didn't want to be poor anymore. So instead of being lazy as I was when I went to college the first time and got kicked out, that was kind of a wake-up call for me. It was a big wake-up call. And then I ended up going into one of the best jobs I've ever had, which was at a full-service gas station. I was there for 4 years. I jumped back into college. But the problem was, I picked up a wife and a kid, and I have a real live job, and I'm responsible for somebody else. So I'm trying to go back to college. I do, however, in the olden days, pre-internet, excuse me, there was no internet, there was no online classes, and colleges were very, very rigid, meaning that if I had to take an econ class, it was only given like twice a week and generally during the day. Even night classes were super unusual. So I had to drop out again. But in the meantime, I ended up getting a job at a bank doing really menial stuff. So for instance, I'd sit at a phone all day and old people that are old like me now would call up and they would want me to check on their bank balance on their account, mostly to see if their social security check had come in. And that's what I did. And then I ended up, so there was 40 people in that department, and this is a long time ago. They decided maybe we can have this be a sales job as well. As long as people are calling us, let's try to sell them accounts and MasterCards and Visas and stuff like that. And it turns out I was really good at it. And my reward was to compile the sales of 40 people. So I had to teach myself how to use, it wasn't called Excel, it was a different product, but it was a spreadsheet. And I ended up kind of good at that. And then I ended up transferring to a different department in that bank. And I learned database, and I learned it really, really well. And the way I describe it is, I always say this, like, are you guys gamers?
Yep.
Yeah.
That was my gamer time. I was so enthralled by learning database, and I loved it. And I became really, really, really good at it all by myself. And then I ran into a guy, a mentor at that job, and he thought I could even be better. And he got me a lot better. And so I ended up being bouncing around from job to job. And they were good jobs. And then one of the guys at one of the jobs suggested, you need to work for yourself. You're too good at database and you should charge a lot of money. And I was kind of scared to do that, not work for somebody else, work for myself. But it turns out, life is long. And one of the people I'd helped out was this giant corporation in California. So I was in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And so it turns out I guess I really was good at database because they were flying me out. And once again, this is pre 9/11. This is pre internet.
Mm-hmm.
They would fly me out to Los Angeles like 3 times a week. So I was on an airplane a lot. And so I worked for myself for a long, long time. I think 11 years. And then it had always bothered me that I'd never finished my undergraduate degree. However,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't matter at that point. I was making a great living, but it just bothered me a bunch. So I went back to school and I found out I only had 19 lower division elective credit to do. So I called up the local community college and I said, "Hey, look, I used to be a tennis professional. Can I just take 19 hours of tennis?" And they're like, "Yeah, if you really want to." I'm like, "Well, I think that's stupid." But anyway, I ended up finishing it up. I was very, very happy, kind of proud of myself. And then after that, the night I got my diploma, I was at a party with people I hadn't seen in a while. I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And one guy's like, "I'm going to grad school." I'm like, "Really?" And I think because I had finally accomplished something, so I was literally in grad school, gosh, 5 days later.
Wow.
And so this thing came along, what's called the internet. And they'd finally figured out to do online classes. But back then, online classes were a bunch of crap because it wasn't like you really had to learn it by yourself. It was more like, hey, read these chapters and then do these assignments, blah, 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 blah. There was no interactivity. I only knew the professor by knowing their name. There wasn't any video stuff. So it was also lined up with what I would call traditional semesters, like a fall semester, a spring semester. But back then there was something called a winter semester, which is extremely intensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up finishing in 354 days. So I had gone from a person without a diploma in less than a year to a person with a master's degree, and I graduated at the top of my class with distinction. And I was pretty happy about that. So the next thing I wanted to do is I finally figured out what I want to do, what I want to be
Mm-hmm.
when I grow up. And I don't know how this came into my head, but I'm like, I am awfully good at database. I've been published on this. I'm good enough where a giant corporation, they were the company that was too big to fail, thought I was so good that they couldn't find someone in California, but they found me. And so I decided I want to go be a professor. And so I went down to the local university and I did not call. I don't, I don't remember if there was email. I think there was email. And I said, "Hey, I'm Matt McCarthy. I think I'd be a really good professor here. So I want to be in your PhD program." And within a couple of minutes, they're like, you're not it. You're not who we're looking for. So I was super, super pissed off that they brushed me aside in the PhD thing. And I'm like, I still want to be a professor. So I drove home. And the second I got home, I guess I looked up on the internet the dean of the W.P. Carey School of Business at the time. And so I
Mm-hmm.
called him and he surprised me. And he surprised me because he answered his own phone. Like, who does that? A dean of a super prestigious business school answers his own. So I was caught off guard. What I blurted out is, "I want to be a professor down there." And he cut me off. He goes, "Oh, hang on, hang on." So he transferred me immediately. And then it really made me angry. Like, this guy, this is a bunch of crap.
Mm-hmm.
He transferred me to the chair of the Department for Computer Information Systems in the business
Mm-hmm.
school. Now, what's the chances of 2 guys in a row that answer their own phone? He answered his own phone. Now,
Wow.
I was loaded for bear for this guy. However, I was so flustered that he answered his own phone. I kind of said it kind of angry. "Hey, I want to be a professor down there." He goes, "What are you doing tomorrow?" Now, remember, I'm working for myself, so I have really big time autonomy. I don't know why. Can you meet me at, there's a deli by Arizona State University. You know where that is? Like, yeah, meet me
Hmm.
there tomorrow at 1. So I can't believe it. Like, the guy wants to interview me. So I go get a sweater because I'm covered with tattoos all over the place, and I'm not sure that's a thing that they want to see. Clean up, meet the guy. Turns out he's a great guy. And he basically goes, "Did you know that you don't need a PhD to teach?" I'm like, "No, I didn't know that." "Oh." And he goes, "Do you know Java? That's a computer language that's
Yeah.
been around. Yeah, it's been around forever. I call Java's a cockroach. The end of the world, the only thing living will be cockroaches and Java. Java's never going to go away. It's a really, really solid language." And so I kind of fib a little bit. I do know it, but not great. "Great. Can you teach it this summer?" "Sure." So 2 days later, I'm in a classroom teaching Java to a bunch of seniors, and it turned out to be a really good thing. And then another professor came in to see if I knew what I was doing. I guess thought I was, and so all of a sudden that fall I'm teaching. And the weird part was I still had a contract with the giant company, and so
Mm.
I do tell people that the amount of luck, like had I not called that dean, had he
Mm-hmm.
not picked up, had uh, the chair who was the original chair, the guy that hired me, just on that day was just, I'm so grateful for that opportunity. So that
Mm-hmm.
was, I'll be going into my 43rd semester. So 23
Wow.
years teaching the same class.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. And then lots has happened since then.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. How did these moments influence the advice you give to your students?
Um, so I did not want to write that book. I knew I always could.
Hmm.
I, I had no reason to write it. And so one of the other professors in my department, so I started teaching, and I still teach now. I always call it the largest class in America. So I will see 4,700 kids a year
Wow.
face to face. And so this is not an online thing. People ask me that all the time, like, no. So this Monday, I'll go in to a giant auditorium that holds about 400 people, and I'll go blah, 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 and tell them my story. And then 75 minutes later, another class of 400 comes in, blah, 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 blah. And so I do that all week long.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there was a professor, this is another huge piece of luck. When I took over that class, a professor called me up, and I was on spring break. And his name is, I don't know if we drop names here or not. I'll just tell you, his name is Ben, fully
Mm-hmm.
tenured, great professor. And he goes, "Hey, can you come to a meeting? I'm really sorry to call you on spring break, because I'm off doing something, but I'm in town." And I'm like, "Ben, I'd be happy to, but I just had a couple of beers and sitting by the pool. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Come on, man. I'm happy. Can you just come down here?" Like, yeah. And I respected the guy so much. I said, I'd be happy to. Okay. So I show up at this meeting, and everyone's wearing like a three-piece suit. There's the dean I talked to. There's a whole bunch of provosts, other deans, and me, probably with mustard stains on my t-shirt. And I said, "What am I doing here?" And so they asked me, it was a big shift. They were asking me about my class, and they said, "What do you think of your class?" And I had just inherited it. And I said, I'd rather really not answer, because it's probably years and years of work of other professors. Now that I'm here, I need to have enough humility to go, look, it's probably been evolved to this point. And they're like, "That's a bunch of crap. What do you think about the class you're teaching?" I said, I fear reprisal. I don't know you people. There's no reprisal. Just give us the honest opinion of your class. I said, fine. I think it's a bunch of crap. I think this is a waste of time. And so they're like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, we need to be talking about stuff on the razor's edge that's happening right now. And I have a lab, and the lab teaches Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and spreadsheet and Excel. And they're like, so what's the problem with that? Anyone with an opposable thumb can use Microsoft Word. I can guarantee you my students, and you, Praneeth, Arav, you can tell me this. I guarantee you that these guys have been using Word since the 4th or 5th grade. Why am I teaching this? This is a
Yeah.
waste of time. And then I said, PowerPoint, anyone with an opposable thumb, a monkey, can figure out PowerPoint by themselves. It's that easy. And I said, probably most of my kids are doing that. And so they're like, okay. Is there something you'd like to add? And I'm like, yeah, database. Database is where everything is. You don't think American Express tracks their crap on spreadsheets, do you? No, they track it in databases. eBay is a database. Google is a database. Let's teach this. If we're in the at the time, if we're in the Pac-12, we're in the Big 12 now. Well, let's go for this. And so they're like, thanks for coming in. I'm like, sorry that I smell like beer and and suntan lotion. So I leave, and this professor that invited me to come down to give my opinion on this class, he kind of chases me out. I'm like, oh, hey, Ben. He goes, and he's just thanking me profusely. Thank you so much for giving a great opinion. And then as I'm heading to my car, he goes, so when are you going to write your book? What? What book? The book. Ben, what are you talking about? The book for your class. You need to write a textbook. You need to write a textbook. I never thought about doing that. And he goes, tell me someone who's more qualified to write a book about their class than you are. I'm like, I guess you're right. So I sat down that afternoon, started writing a book, and I've been writing textbooks ever since, along with what I do for a living. So that was a long time ago. I'm not just old. I was old like 10 years ago. I'm an old dude.
Yeah.
So you said that you worked in various industries before becoming a professor. How did these experiences outside of teaching and outside of your teaching profession influence your approach to teaching, writing textbooks, and just like your personality in the classroom?
Well, I think I get my personality from my dad. My dad was a combat fighter pilot. He flew 157 missions in Vietnam. And so we moved all over the place. And so there's only one of two kinds of military brat like me. You're either going to be an introvert, not talk to anyone the rest of your life, or you're going to learn how to talk to people. And I went that route. When I was at work, I was always fascinated with my boss and how good they were, even at the gas station. Like, I've never had to manage people, and I don't want to. But then when I got to the bank, I was super fortunate to run into my first mentor. He was a guy I didn't like at first, but turns out we're lifelong friends. I'm still friends with him now. And he was just one of those people that kind of taught me the responsibility. Like, if you ever get anywhere, you're kind of responsible to help somebody else out. And he had helped me out so much. He taught me so much about, computing. Like, it could always be better. And then I was very fortunate. I was hired. There was a very bad economy. And I was hired by these two brothers and their dad, and they're a real estate company, and they made me their controller. And the same kind of thing happened. This one guy, Mike, he was just kind of took me under his wing, and all I really had to do is listen and work hard. And so those two mentors, I think, along with my parents, really shaped what I do today.
Yeah. So you're saying networking is important. So how would you help people who find it challenging to connect with professionals in their fields? And
Yeah, I don't have the things I say are insensitive when I say them.
Mhm.
So when I say them, I don't want to have to argue with it. But for instance, like I'm I'm on some Facebook groups with enormous amounts of parents. Like there's
Mhm.
a moms and dads group. It's almost 7,000 parents in this Facebook group. And then I'm in one for the WP Carey School of Business. And some things I don't comment on, but I know what I'm saying is true. For instance, hey, my kid can't seem to make friends at ASU. Then it's your kid's fault. I know
Mhm.
you don't want to hear it. It's your fault. And you know what it's like? It's like when someone goes, I can't lose weight. Really? Start exercising and eat less. It's not a secret. Same
Yeah.
with friends. And then, Will Rogers, the famous humorist, probably had the best. And I'm sorry, I'm not doing this, but he said if you want to make a friend, talk to someone and let them tell you about themselves. Let them talk about themselves. That's a huge way to do it. But it's your fault if you can't make friends at university, especially Arizona State University. That's
Mhm.
the largest public university in the country. I actually did it
Wow.
yesterday, and I've been in front of 88,000 people in the last 22 years. And it's unfortunate too because my wife hates it.
Yeah.
Because I get recognized at the grocery store, at Costco, and it drives my wife nuts. So, but but those guys, specific people that I really respected, I paid attention to, and I took their directions. And so
Mhm.
I've
Hmm.
been very fortunate to see some great managers.
Mhm.
So, right now you're teaching the class Computer Information Systems 105. Uh, in a world like where technology and computer science, computer engineering, any type of engineering is becoming extremely popular, how would you say like the students in your class are like in terms of motivation and their love for the field?
It's weird because you can imagine all my friends are old people, and they are. And the first thing that people ask me when they find out I'm a professor, they're like, "What are those kids like?" And I always say, "Students today are astoundingly good. However, the best students lay low. They take care of themselves. They know what their priorities are." And that's in my book, and I understand that you can't say that title out loud, but I don't know if you guys know what the real title is of that book,
Yeah.
but so I'm not going to say it.
Mhm.
But students today are astounding. I always tell them like first day will be Monday, and I'll tell them to their face, you know why everyone hates you? Because people like me are insanely jealous of you. And there are so many unbelievable students that you'll run into that already have businesses, or like you guys that have a podcast. Um, and you can kind of tell who's going to probably be out of there in one semester, which is why in my book, I don't start out with here's a bunch of college tips. I start out with why are you going to college? Like,
Mhm.
probably one of the bigger mistakes I made in my life is going to college right out of high school. I should have probably gone in the military. I would have loved to have been in the Coast Guard. And
Mhm.
then the GI Bill would have paid for my college, all of it, if I wanted to. And then the
Hmm.
second thing I say is why are you here? Why are you specifically here at Arizona State University when you can go right down the road to Scottsdale Community College or Paradise Valley Community College and pay 70% less? And so I do start out my book saying, it's not a binary thing coming out of high school. It's not like, well, I guess I'm going to be a lumberjack or go to college. Mm-mm. There's an infinite amount of choices. And unfortunately, it's not something, this is what drives me crazy about high school counselors. They piss me off so bad because, like, I have 6 kids. So I remember my youngest kid, I went to talk to her high school counselor and I was in her office and she had all these banners, here's Harvard and here's Dartmouth and here's all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, look, you're hanging those up like they're prizes. What you're not telling kids is you're acting like there's only one choice after high school. There's an infinite amount of choices after high school. And I think you're doing a disservice to a lot of people. So I'm a big proponent if you're not ready for college. So that's essentially what it's like. And then it'll get into advice. But the first advice, and you guys have seen this in school. I guarantee you guys have seen this in your high schools.
Yeah.
You ever see that totally immature person and you're like, you're not going to make it.
Yeah,
You're trying
definitely.
so hard, you're spending so much energy in being cool, and they have some alpaca stupid haircut and and maybe they are cool. But the fact is that everything costs money, especially, your time. And so when students come into university and they're trying so hard to be cool, and the first thing I tell them, you don't have to believe me, but no one cares if you're cool in college.
Hmm.
It's not the equity that we're looking for. People
Yeah.
care if you're smart. People care if you're doing really, really well. And so when people treat university like high school, you could just tell they're going to fail. You could just
Hmm.
like you'll be done by the end of the semester. You'll be on a Zoom call with me. You'll be crying that you lost your scholarship. And this opportunity may never come back again. So what I tell kids is I say, look, so this will be Monday. Monday is what, the 26th?
Yes.
I'll say,
Yeah.
look, let's talk about May 7th of 2025. Let's talk about that. Here's how school works. You're probably taking 5 classes, 3-hour classes, right?
Hmm.
That's 15 hours a semester times 2. That's a year. That's 30 hours times 4 for a degree, 120 hours. Boom, here's your diploma. Get out. What I tell my freshmen, so I specialize in first semester freshmen. That's why everyone has to take my class. That's why it has thousands and thousands in the fall. But I say I want you to think about May 6th, May 7th of 2025. You'll have 2 semesters under your belt. If you have 28, 29, 30, 31 hours and a 3 point something GPA, you killed college. You did great. You want to chase a 4.0? Go for it. No one cares about your GPA unless maybe you're going to go to grad school. So I try to impress on them. I know you don't want to hear this, but you need to make this your priority. You need to take this seriously. And I always say, here's some advice your parents will never give you. I want you to be selfish AF. I want you to be selfish when it comes to the pursuit of getting your degree. So, which should I choose? Going to a party and drinking some Fireball tonight or studying?
Hmm.
And so it's like, look, and I'm not going to tell you which one to do. It's not my life, it's your life. I'm not even telling you you're making bad decisions. But if you don't make college a priority, you're going to do poorly. And I do see that. So,
And
Yeah.
so, what about the kids who do make it through college? So, I know a lot of kids will struggle finding their first job. So, like,
yeah,
what are some important skills or strategies that they need to focus to launch their careers successfully?
Praneeth, that's a really good question. So I can speak to Arizona State University and the W.P. Carey School of Business. Couple things that are super important. One of the first things that's super important, not everyone gets, is you know what you want to do on your way to college. That is one of the biggest advantages there is. Like my older
Hmm.
brother wanted to be an aeronautical engineer so he can be a pilot in the Air Force. And so he already knew. And so that was helpful. So if you know what your major is, hopefully by the time you're done your freshman year, you can do that. So let's say you want to be economics or supply chain or finance. First thing I would do is find the economics club. So WP Carey, well, ASU in general takes clubs very, very seriously. So
Hmm.
for instance, I have to go through Clery Act training just to be a faculty advisor. So any club you run into, Someone had to go through a lot of trouble to start that club, building a constitution for the club, a charter for the club. Here's my club officer. So if you're a finance bro and that's what you want to be, find the finance club, hang out with those guys. And by the time you're a junior and a senior, you're going to know a lot of people. So for instance, my youngest, she was a accounting, I want to say an accounting supply chain double. And so she joined a club, and she still knows. And so I think she's been out of college for 6 years now. She knows all of those people still. And so she went directly to KPMG because she was attending club. So here's a nice little secret about college. In my department, we have a club called DISC, Department of Information Systems Club. Employers ask us, can we come to your DISC meeting? Like ExxonMobil, Boeing, KPMG, the Big Four, all these people, we want to talk to your graduates first. Okay. And they want to cherry pick and find out who's best. So that's one of the biggest ways people get jobs. Yeah. So my daughter went to her KPMG job. She moved to Denver to do that. And turns out she did it for a year and a half. But in the meantime, all those other people I'm telling you about that she networked with, hey, they're looking for blah, blah, blah at this company. I want you to put your name in. And so not only does she end up getting a job out of college, but one of the other things that happens, I hate rankings of university. I think they should be illegal. I think they're dumb.
Yeah.
They take up too much time, and I'm very public about that. However, I do use them to my advantage. So ASU has so many services for you to get a job, and so people don't even know about that. So what you want to end up doing is go find these services, because ASU is one of the top ranked job placing universities in the country, as well as one of the top ROI. So your return on investment is really, really good. And so for rankings, we're ranked partly on if our graduates are getting jobs. So we have to know, so we stay in contact with our alumni. And that's why we stay heavily, heavily involved with the people that hire them too. And so people go, well, are you teaching on the cutting edge? And I'll go, sometimes. But what we're teaching is what the people that are hiring our graduates are doing. So we'll go, what tools are you using? Power BI, Tableau, Excel, database, blah, blah, blah. And we'll pivot very quickly and teach that kind of stuff. So, but really it's your networking in university that I was such a knucklehead, I didn't even know it existed. And now it's a huge, huge, really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah. And
I tell first semester freshmen too, go join a club.
Yeah.
You know, if you go join the Quidditch club, go in intramural sports, go do that, go do something. Once again, if you can't make friends, it's your fault.
For high schoolers, college, people in college, college students, graduates, for all of them, what would be like 3 to 4 advices that or talking points that you would give to them about how to succeed, not just academically, but outside of school in like everything?
My brother gave me great advice because when I wanted to be a professor, I was telling him, and by the way, this is before I had my undergraduate degree.
Okay.
And so my older brother, everything seemed to work out for him, but he worked very, very hard. You know, he became an F-16 pilot. And I happened to be talking to him when I was a senior in high school and I was playing football. And he goes, how many touchdowns are you going to score this year? I'm like, and I was always kind of like, how should I know? And I was kind of mad at him. Like, how should I know? Haven't you made a goal? No, I'll see what happens. And so I remembered that all my life. And then when I wanted to be a professor, I went back to him. And I said, I don't think I can be a professor. Why not? Well, I don't have an undergraduate degree. I don't have a graduate degree. I don't have all this stuff. So you see the path in front of you. If you really wanted to be a professor, you would do all these things. So my first piece of advice is, and his little motto was, why not you? You want to be an astronaut? I'm like, now you're talking stupid. No, really. Do you want to be an astronaut? You can put all the things in front of you and they can look like an excuse and don't do them, or shut up and stop talking about being an astronaut, or shut up, stop talking about being a professor, or I'm a best-selling author. I never thought that was going to happen. So I would tell students, why not you? What is it about you? If you really, really want that, why not you? Just lay all your obstacles out in front of you. And then the next one is treat it kind of like a job. So for instance, any excuse that you give in college, I want you to remember that excuse and see if it works at your job. So I'll have people email me and go, hey, I just couldn't make it today. I wasn't feeling great. Can you catch me up? Nope. It's college. So the same thing happens. Could you say that to an employer? You know what? I didn't feel like coming in today. Great. I'm going to dock your pay for a full day. And so you can start to see that. So all of these things that are very, very, very personal to you, you have to get your maturity rate up. Once again, stop wasting your time on things that don't matter. Like, I don't care about TikTok. I don't care about planets. I don't care about dinosaurs. What I care about, if I'm a student, is being very selfish about getting my college degree and focusing on that. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a blast. You're going to have a blast. But focus on yourself and look at your obstacles as not excuses. They're just simply obstacles. Figure them out if you really, really believe that you want to do that. So,
Yeah. So regarding your answer, you said your brother basically told you like go just have like a just do it attitude. In terms of like resilience, how would you say that like what role does resilience play in building you a successful career or your students, and like
Rob,
with
that's such
facing
a good
setbacks and
question.
everything? Thank
That's
you.
such a good question. I don't know if it's my background, but I just am not a person to give up very easily. But unfortunately, at a certain time in my life, I was a person that would make excuses why
Mm.
things weren't going my way when I really knew, no, it's my fault. And so the resilience part, you may fail in college, but the fact is, were you going to class? Like, pretty much if you don't attend my class, you're going to fail. If you miss 2 of my 32 classes, you're going to fail because you thought it'd be cool to skip school. You need to have the resilience. You need to have the wherewithal. I don't care if you're in your pajamas. And I see that all the time. I tell you, wear your pajamas to class. I don't care. You're here. Good for you. So it's that resilience of getting into it. You don't need motivation in college. You need discipline. Everyone's motivated by everything. So it is the resilience that I think you have to work on. And I think that's part of being a mature person. Oh no, it didn't work out for me. No, it was your fault. It wasn't my fault. It was your fault. And so being resilient and, taking a couple of rocks on the head, but making your way to class and doing what you're supposed to do. And that is, Arav, that's just such a good question. It is resilience. Maybe when I write book 2.0, I'll include a chapter on resilience.
Yeah. That was such an insightful conversation. Mr. McCarthy's journey from dropping out of college twice to becoming a leader, educator at ASU is truly inspiring. His passion for helping other students navigate the challenges of college life really shines through.
Absolutely, Praneeth. Mr. McCarthy's advice on how to avoid common pitfalls in college and set yourself up for success is something every student should hear. His emphasis on resilience and learning from mistakes is not just relevant for college, but for life in general.
We hope you all found this episode as valuable as we did. If you enjoyed our conversation with Mr. McCarthy, be sure to subscribe to Professional Perspectives and leave us a review, and share with anyone who might benefit from this advice, as well as check out Mr. McCarthy's book, How to Avoid Messing Up in College.
And don't forget, we got great episodes lined up with professionals from various fields who have amazing stories to share. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep striving, keep learning, and remember, your journey is what you make of it. See you next time.